everyone, nice to see you again. And for anyone that's not seen my previous videos, this is part 2 of a series of videos I'll be doing, which covers our relocating journey from Newcastle to Cairns and how our tropical lifestyle is panning out. So the lessons learnt, I'll be discussing why I would not recommend this and all the issues preparing the house for sale, moving our belongings and finding a rental. So selling our house in Newcastle was a big step for us because we were very concerned about the property market and the fear of losing money and our capital growth. So you're never really sure what the best move is, and the Newcastle market is likely a lot better than the Cairns market, but it's hard to say. That's changed since COVID. One thing you have to consider though is what is best for you, and in our case we decided living life was more important than worrying about money. Money is important, but so is your quality of life, and to ensure you're living the best life you possibly can. So as I said in my last video, we are loving life in Cairns, and it may not be the end of our journey and we don't know where to next, but for now it's our home and we are enjoying every minute. Well, not the still working part of course, but anyway, we're on our way. So selling our house was a nightmare and I would not recommend doing it the way that we did it, but it was just the way it all worked out. Would I do it again? Absolutely, but with the lessons learnt. I'd preferably not move with pets, which we plan on not getting anymore anyway, but sometimes this can't be avoided. Children, no, the kids were great, but sadly they didn't stay. The first step was we got a rental. This was hard, as you can imagine. Lots of people from down south are moving up to tropical paradise, so there's a lot of competition, especially with families for 3 and 4 bedroom homes. The first step, we got a rental. This was hard, as you can imagine, because lots of people are moving from down south, moving up here to tropical paradise. So there's a lot of competition, especially for families and 3 and 4 bedroom homes. Plus the rents are really high. I always thought Newcastle was high, but when you consider the value of a property to buy, Cairns in comparison is very expensive for rentals. If you can avoid having to rent, I would highly recommend it. Not to mention the issues that go with being a tenant, which I hope I never have to do again. But you never know. If at some point we decide to move overseas, which is on the cards potentially, obviously we will be needing to rent something. Competition meant that anything in the price bracket we were thinking we would be comfortable with just all seemed to get snapped up very quickly, and my timeline was not ready for that. So we ended up walking in the next bracket up, which reduced the competition. We were accepted for a 4 bedroom home with 2 living areas in Trinity Beach with a nice pool and a yard for our dog. So little did we know that with wet season, the lovely, beautiful tropical garden would require so much work with these damn trees that just about doubled in size overnight, and real estate inspections were not great. We were quickly told to trim back the trees to the fence height. It felt like a full-time job, honestly. So that's just something to be mindful of. Anyway, we rented the house for $8.25 a week. That was in 2024, and I'd hate to think what the rent would be now. I reckon the house itself would have been worth about $700,000, maybe $800,000 now. Definitely cheaper to buy if you can rather than rent in Cairns. But again, as I said in part 1, Cairns is pretty good for investment with great rental returns. I'll tell you one of the cool things about our rental was we rented. It was a really nice little neighbourhood. It was kind of like a little circuit, a very popular street in Trinity Beach called Seaways, and every year at Halloween, the whole street gets involved, and seriously, you cannot drive into the street. It is that packed with people. The neighbours have a little, like a stand where they are giving out cupcakes and all sorts of funny, crazy food things. Everyone's dressed up. The outfits are amazing and crazy, and yeah, was unbelievable, and blew us away. So we did get involved in that, and that was great fun. So back to our story, our journey. My husband and I flew down and drove our second car up to bring our dog up to Cairns. And at the same time all this was happening, I was lucky enough to score a promotion at work, which allowed me to work from home most of the time. And my new managers were happy for me to go back to our house in Newcastle and work from there while I got the house ready to sell. So the following week, I flew down again, and the kids packed up and drove one of their cars up, breaking down on the way, which was not ideal. So I kept my son's car to run around in while I was there, which was handy. And once the kids arrived in Cairns, my husband and my oldest son flew down, and we packed up all of our furniture into a little truck, and they drove straight through the 30 plus hours back to Cairns with all of our belongings. The truck was so cool, to be honest. It was delivered to our house in Newcastle. The guy opened it up and rolled out a little car for his drive back to Sydney. Then when the truck got back to Cairns and was unpacked, someone came in another little car and drove it into the back of the truck and drove it back to Townsville. It was so cool. I wish we had left most of it behind, to be honest, but I'd only just recently purchased 2 brand new Nick Scully leather lounges that had barely been used, not expected to move when we did, plus furniture in Cairns is harder to get and can be more expensive. I was left in the Newcastle house with a mattress on the floor, a TV and the fridge, which we were selling at the house, and a few clothes. I spent every spare minute I could over the next month when I wasn't working in my day job, painting, gardening and organising trades. The list was endless. I'd make a trip to Bunnings almost every day after I finished work to pick up some more supplies, loading up what I could inside my son's small car, really. I did tip runs and all sorts of things, trying to save what money I could. Each week, the garbage bin would be chockers, and I'd get rid of as much as I could. We'd been renovating houses for years, so I had quite a collection of wood and other crap building supplies under our house, so I'd be pulling all of that out as well. The amount of stuff we had was ridiculous. What you accumulate is crazy. It was the toughest month with trying to do it all on my own. Hubby had only just recently started a new job. I drove my son's car up to Cairns, a 30 plus hours drive, loaded up with more stuff and drove straight through with lots of coffee stops, flapping my hands, singing and dancing to the music at times to keep myself awake. I've done this trip a few times and I would recommend no one ever does this. It is very dangerous. So a week later, my hubby and I flew back down again to get rid of all the remaining stuff and finalise everything. We still had so much rubbish to get rid of and spent another 2 weeks clearing it all. Unfortunately, the day came where we were flying back home. The stylists were coming and we were doing the final cleaning up. We had some friends and neighbours come to help us clear the last few things, do some cleaning and take some more of the rubbish away and drop us at the airport. We really underestimated the amount of rubbish we still had, and our friends took loads of rubbish to put in their bins, and our lovely neighbour had a pile of stuff next to both our bins and theirs to get rid of the stuff over the coming weeks. So feeling like we were on the block was an understatement, seriously, and I wish we just got a skip in, and that was another lesson learned. As we were running out the door and trying to make our flight, the stylists had arrived and already unloading into the house. It was so chaotic. So the time came when it was already, it was such a lot. And I would never do again, but was it worth it? Again, absolutely. We arrived back in our rental with the kids holding down the fort while we were away looking after the pets. All we had to then do was sit back and wait for the house to be sold, and eventually that happened and we sold. We didn't quite hit our target, but we still did okay. The rental was good and we had plenty of space. The only complaint that I had was that it wasn't walking distance to all the local bars and restaurants, which we've been so used to both here and in Newcastle. But we decided that we liked living in the northern beaches and started to make some lovely new friends. So we decided to stay. Next week, I will continue with part 3 and what happened next. I'll cover what happened to the kids and where we ended up. So thank you all for watching, and please, if you can relate or relocating interests you at all, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment if you're going through something similar or have any questions. See you again next Wednesday.